Wow, wow, wow. Was I shocked when I saw this article shared with me this morning? This was an article posted on the Adventist Review website yesterday on August 23rd, and it's entitled "The Big Current Event Happening: Freedom of Conscience and Priesthood of All Believers." Wow. I mean, what could be, what could be less harmful than a title like that? Who would be against the freedom of conscience? Who would be against speaking out against the current event? The big current event happening. Everyone knows what that is. But we're going to delve into this because I think this is actually the big misinformation going on. Like my video is titled, "This is a religious liberty advocate, religious liberty professor, speaking against your right to conscience, your ability to think for yourself." What is this article saying? He's speaking against a lot of people. What is it? People that have health credentials of another kind, being nurses, dentists, surgeons, cardiologists, functional medical doctors, and so on. But you know what they don't have? They're not medical experts in biology, or epidemiology, or vaccines. So you know what that means? They must be complete idiots. Or you know what? They probably never took a virology class at all. Or you know what? They probably never worked with a patient that was suffering an ailment of the big current event that's happening. Wow. So these people are absolutely clueless. But you know who we should listen to? We should listen to the Nicholas Miller. This guy, he's smart. He is a smart cookie. Either he's smart or what he's doing is saying we should listen to the people who are the elites. People who we should all respect because they are the smart ones. We're all just peasants. Why are we thinking? There's no need to be thinking. They do the thinking, we just do what they say. If Mr. Fauci says, put on one mask, you put it on. If he says you don't need to wear a mask, you don't need to wear a mask. If the next day he says 2 masks, you put 2 masks on, okay? Why are we thinking? We're peasants. So, let's get into this a little bit, okay? Let's go on, starting right here. What's going on in our frightened world of profound misinformation, paranoia, and a celebration of eccentric and wow. I look this word up, but you know, they do this all the time. But they do this all the time. This is just using big fancy words that the common man, you know, us peasants would never understand. Many factors, but a primary one is profound misunderstanding, misapplication of the Protestant principle of the priesthood of all believers and the right of private judgment in matters of religious belief. I wrote my dissertation on published a subsequent book on this topic, tracing the development of conscience from Luther, you know, the guy who quit being a monk and started the Lutheran Church, or at least was the founder of it, through dissenting Protestantism to the formation of our Bill of Rights and First Amendment. And I would say not just the First Amendment, the entire Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment, Third Amendment, all the way to the 10th. Okay? Right of conscience is a big deal. Wow. Lucas's concept also contained role for officers, positions of leadership, or authority held by persons who had been gifted, instructed, and trained to carry out certain functions for the community. They were not spiritually superior to others, but they were qualified to hold these roles in ways that were not, that most were not. Thus, while all were priests in a spiritual sense, not all were meant to serve as pastors or elders, and people trained and gifted for this would be put in these positions. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting stuff, Mr. Miller. Do these officials, officers, and leaders always operate perfectly and without fault or flaw? Wow. Wow, he rightly so says. Clearly not. This should be emboldened. This should be emboldened and in a font size larger than it is. They always remain accountable to the people and can be removed if they become abusive, corrupt, hold on. Abusive, corrupt, or display a lack of ability and expertise. They always remain accountable to the people and can be removed if they become abusive, corrupt, or display a lack of ability and expertise. So you're saying that they are accountable to the people? Who are these people? Who are these people? Are we looking at the same state health officials, the same bureaucrats in Washington, in the CDC, in the FDA, the current, the Pope of all health doctrine in America? Cardinal Dr. Fauci? Come on. Are we thinking of the same people here? Are we thinking of the same people? These people are not accountable. The president has already said, under no circumstances would he fire Dr. Fauci. Under no circumstances. Especially when it can't come out that he was flip-flopping on issues. He didn't even know. Look at the email transcript. The Freedom of Information Act that came out. But now we live in a day when every man or woman who self-selects can assert expertise in health, science, medicine, and religious liberty without working within the complex system of education, checks and balances, and accountability that leads to our system of leaders and experts. You know why we don't do this anymore? You know why people aren't really falling for this baloney trap of the hierarchy of modern society? It's because it's a straight malarkey. No one's falling for, so I need to go to a university after I spent 12 years of my life studying. So I need to study for 4 more years at minimum to become an expert. So society can say, I'm an expert in a field. If you don't get this sheet of paper from a university or a college, some kind of respected institution, you will never be a respected person in some kind of system of checks and balances. From a it literally says it here, complex system of education. Wow. And he got paid $120,000 to, oh, where's this guy? This guy is literally a professor at Andrews University. Andrews University, at minimum, costs $30,000 to attend. $40,000 with everything included. So you go there for 4 years. You're paying at minimum $120,000. Okay. Come on. These elites in the castle telling you're peasants. They can become raging popes. Speaking of the peasants, he's saying the peasants are becoming raging popes. Unironically, inveighing against the very system that made living without popes and kings possible in the first place. Also false. We still have popes and kings. By creating a system of meritocratic, accountable, functional expertise. Attacking this democratic, also not democratic, I already went through that. We do not have a democratic system. And democratic and representative system. Okay, we do have a representative system. Is now seen as a height of courage and conscience, when in reality it is undermining the very system where true conscience as well as health itself can receive protection. Let me go back, go through that sentence, because that was a pretty long sentence right there. Attacking this democratic and representative system. Okay, you vote for representatives. That's where it's democratic. And the representatives, what do they next do? Then they don't represent you. A lot of these, everyone knows, the entire political machine in America, you vote some guy in, he goes to Washington, or he goes to Lansing, Indianapolis, Springfield, wherever your state capital is. They don't represent you. They have their own political agenda. There's very few people in DC right now who actually go to DC, Washington DC, and say in DC, on their written bills, what they said on the campaign trail, what they promised to do for you back home, in your home state, in your home district. Very few people. You can count them on one hand. Two hands if you're lucky. And you know how many members there are? There's 450 members. If you can only count 10 members at most, it's a corrupt system. But you're probably going to say, oh, it's the best we got. Okay, sure, it's the best we got in America, and probably in the world. But it's very flawed. Because you know what else these representatives will do? They put these bureaucrats in charge for life. Some might call that the deep state. They let bureaucrats stay in office, and then those bureaucrats employ other people in the government, and then they stay in office. It's a corrupt system. DC was never meant to be this large. Let's read the ending of this article. That's not... Okay, so as we puzzle over a system that lets any person become a viral hero to hundreds of thousands of Americans and imposing thousands of highly trained medical scientific experts who have treated millions of patients, let us consider the true insight and limits of Luther's priesthood of all believers, and beware of the dangers of hyper-individualisms. Self-appointed experts. Freedom of individual conscience only means something in a functioning community that can operate to keep us alive and healthy. Freedom of individual conscience only means something in a functioning community that can operate to keep us all alive and healthy. I don't know where he really derived that statement from at all, that freedom of individual conscience only means something in a functioning community that can keep us all alive and healthy. Where did the alive and healthy part come from? Where did that come from? Freedom of individual conscience, it should just be freedom of individual conscience, period. You have conscience as an individual, and you should be able to exercise that freely. There are more than 629,000 Americans who no longer have either freedom or conscience because they are no longer alive due to COVID-19. Now, I'm not one to say it's not because of that. Who knows? That's up to the medical experts. But I will tell you this, medical experts are not releasing all the data. You know why? Because they're in the tower and we are the peasants. And if they showed us the data, we could read it. We could read it. But guess what? Who are the two most affected groups from this current event happening around us? It is the old people and the fat people. So I don't hear the Adventist church, I don't hear a lot of Christian leaders telling people to get off the couch, telling people to eat more healthy. I've gone to church all my life, but you know what? I'm a self-proclaimed Seventh-day Adventist. I've been an Adventist my entire life. But in the past, 5 years plus, I have heard very little about New Start. I heard about New Start in high school. Probably heard about it, once or twice afterwards. I'm still young, so yeah, I'm only 10 years out of high school. But only hearing it twice in 10 years, that's not great. Especially when there's a lot of fat Adventist preachers out there. Let's not add more to the number of making claims of freedom of conscience that neither Luther nor any other Reformer or Adventist religious liberty pioneers would recognize or accept. This is not an argument for mandatory coercion or vaccination. Our Constitution protects individual informed consent for adults in any medical treatment. Oh, now this is where the funniness really kicks off. But your choice not to be vaccinated will appropriately come with limitations on community participation, work, and travel. You cannot fairly decry these limits as violations of fundamental Protestant principles of freedom once you understand their true history and nature, and even more fundamental right of your neighbors and friends to stay alive. Wow. I really don't know what my neighbors and friends have anything to do with my freedom of conscience, my freedom to make decisions in my own hands, especially when my neighbor is guzzling down KFC and eating just straight garbage and never even wanting to walk down the block. But I need to care about his health, me not taking a shot in the arm. That's gonna kill my neighbor. There's no personal responsibility. We're trying to talk about health choices right now. But the only health choice is the health choice that the government says you need to do. Is that the mind of thought now? That's the mind of thought? Especially on a religious organization that refers to the United States over and over. People didn't know this. People don't know this. But the Adventist Church over and over states that the United States will bring the end to to society, and the United States will bring the end to what is it? They're going to ally with the Pope to create a national Sunday law and make everyone basically make everyone worship Satan. That's almost Adventist doctrine. Okay, paraphrase. But that's what got me so worked up, though. This religious liberty professor, so-called religious liberty professor, saying that people do not have a right of conscience. It's quite an embarrassment, actually. And I really wasn't surprised when I saw it by Nicholas Miller. I saw this guy had some interesting views about 15 years ago, and then I went to go to a youth conference that the Adventist Church puts on, and I went to a panel that he was on. I was like, "Oh, awesome, Nicholas Miller! I've read this guy's work." But then I went up and asked him some questions after he talked, because I had some further questions, and you know me, if people say some things, I like to hold them accountable. And let's be quite frank, he did not give pretty good answers. They were pretty lackluster. And after that, I was like, okay, this guy might be a phony. There's a lot of phonies out there in religion. What the kids now be calling grifting. I would say a lot of religious people run a huge grift. Not a lot of things are personal, especially if they can be religious liberty experts, and they're making statements like this. Let's go back to this. This is not an argument for mandatory coercion or vaccination. Our Constitution protects individual informed consent for adults and medical treatment. Oh, okay, great. But your choice not to be vaccinated will appropriately come with limitations on community participation, work, and travel. Okay, so you can't work, you can't travel, but pretty much the big one here would work. If you can't work, you can't put food on the table, you can't feed yourselves, who knows? What if society says they're going to close out your bank account? That's a real thing that's happening. If the state says you are a dangerous person, they are already closing people's bank accounts. And we're not talking about terrorists. I'm talking about Christians. There are Christians that are already being targeted. This is not a conspiracy theorist. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is already happening, people. The prominent Jew that even ran for Congress, and she's been without a bank account for years. But now we're talking about, people can't work because they're selfish. And this is a statement by a religious liberty professor. I don't even think you should be holding a title as being for any type of liberty, period, let alone religious liberty. But we're talking about, in one of the earlier paragraphs, about how the Bill of Rights came about, and it stemmed from, Nicholas Miller said, the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment, and of course all the rest of the amendments in the Bill of Rights came from Martin Luther's idea of right of conscience. So, I would say, the American tradition of individualism has expounded on that. You know how long ago it's been since Martin Luther has been on the face of the planet? That guy died in the 1500s. He did a lot of great things for society. But his legacy has lived on and people have built on it. Especially the American tradition of individualism, capitalism has built onto it. There's been a quote by Thomas Jefferson. It goes like this. Let me get straight. It goes, how does it go again? I had to tab up just to remind me. Let me see where we're at with this. Oh, here we go. I don't know how I forgot this. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. It's that easy. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. I will not be a slave to society and have them tell me I cannot work. I cannot do community participation. I cannot travel. There's a bill right now out in the House put forward that they want to stop interstate travel. That's constitutional? No interstate travel? But apparently this religious liberty think tank, big brain person from a university that you need to pay $40,000 a year to go to. This guy. He's way up there. Way up there in Mount Pius, up in the nice shiny castle. We're way down here. We're peasants. We're peasants. We're peasants to him. You do what the government says, what the elected leaders say, because you're peasants. This is no longer just talking about right of conscience. People in today's world, in the current year of our Lord, 2021, are able to pull up data because we have the internet. We don't need these phony elites telling us what's right and what's wrong. You know, not too long ago, we didn't have the internet. There were just newspapers. And there was only a few select news channels. And they could easily tell you what to believe. I bet that's the type of society that this Nicholas Miller would rather we live in. And I'm sure this is not the only religious. I mean, obviously he's a religious leader. He's a religious liberty director. Let me scroll up. Here we go. He's the religious liberty director and professor of SDA theology at Andrews University. This is the university I'm talking about. That costs $40,000 a year for a student to go to. So, like I'm saying, he's probably not the only one. It's not just Adventist religious leaders saying this. Look at what your church is doing. Look at what they're doing. Hold them accountable, because people like this don't really care about you. They don't. They want you to fall in line. They want you to fall in line. They don't really care about your religion. They don't care about your deep held spiritual beliefs. They want you to fall in line with the government. They are extensions of the state They are extensions of the state and nothing more at this point. And that's all I had to say. Hope everyone's having a great time and staying healthy. Go walk outside. Go walk around the block. Experience God's great creation, because it's a great day out there. Yeah, hopefully you're not in the city though. Get out of the cities.